Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. It's happening in 3 weeks. Let's Talk Dubs in the Wagon, one crazy weekend here in Las Vegas. Head to Vegas on September 24th for an action-packed weekend driving your Volkswagen. 2 organized strip cruises Friday night, a car show Saturday morning from 8 to 1, and then a little break. In between, we've got social hours and gatherings for all of us VDub heads to hang out and talk cars, shop, and BS. And at 6 o'clock Saturday night kicks off the Let's Talk Dubs One Crazy Weekend Poker Run. That's right, the only event where you're going to win cash money, $1,500 for the best poker hand. We've got $300 for second place and $200 for third. Book your room now at the Orleans Hotel and Casino by using code AVW1C09. AVW1C09 will get you a fantastic room rate discount at the Orleans Hotel and Casino, who's hosting this event for us. They provided some great spaces for us to hang out and congregate, and a lot of opportunities for us to just chill and gather as a people at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. Go there, book your room, get your discount, and get it locked in for the weekend. Vegas is going to be busy, so make sure you book your rooms early. Also go to letstalkdubs.com and click on the show and pre-register for the show, which is $30. And if you want to be in the poker run, it's $50 per car. Let's not forget our sponsors of this event. Sunkist Graphics for all of our graphics and paper needs. Damn Volks out of Boulder City, Eric DeYoung, building engines. We've got Ross Wolf, also out of Las Vegas, Nevada, building superior parts for your VW aftermarket obsession. Better quality, better products. Ross Wolf. Finley Volkswagen. If you're looking for a new water-cooled Volkswagen, head on down to Finley Volkswagen, the Valley Auto Mall, to get the best deal and tell them Let's Talk Dubs sent you. Las Vegas VW Club is going to be helping out with the event as well. So those are the people that are bringing it to you this year for the Let's Talk Dubs One Crazy Weekend. I tell you, the show circuit's on, the show season's jamming, and I'm super excited about it. There's lots going on. I'm not going to make it to Treffin this weekend, but you'll be seeing some flyers out there as well as Friday afternoon, because there's going to be some people out there, my street team, helping me out, get some flyers out to you guys. Make sure you guys head out here for one unbelievable weekend coming up September 24th and 25th here in Las Vegas. But now with show season being upon us, it reminds me of back in the day when I used to go to some of the first shows I went to. And one of the first shows I went to, I saw Bad Razz. When I saw Bad Razz, I was stopped in my tracks. Saw this car was so cool. His setup, display, raspberry paint, the polished Fuchs, the Recaro seats. It just had every button pushed for the 90s. I mean, it was such a super dope ride. And I often wondered what happened to that car. Was you heard in the last podcast, I ran into a guy whose brother is good friends with Stanley Escolano, owner of Bad Razz. Well, guess who we got on the podcast this week? That's right, Stanley Escolano, owner of Bad Razz. So we get to hear the history, how it all came together, where his ideas came from, how the car morphed into the different things it morphed into, his time in the VW show circuit, as well as when he dipped out for a minute and started hitting a lot of the hot rod shows and the reception he got there, up until he finally hung up his Spurs and parked her in the garage. We'll find out if he still owns it, if it's still coming back on the road, and what's to be had with Bad Razz. So I'm pretty stoked to bring that to you guys this week. A few of those things that I've really been interested in tracking down and finding out what happened to him. So I'm stoked about this podcast, and I know you guys should be excited to hear the story as well. Remember, we love when you share the podcast. So if you can, go down to the details, hit the little icon that says share this podcast with all your friends in a group text, the car club you belong to, whatever association you have, people that love Volkswagens. I'm sure they'll enjoy hearing some of the history that we track down here on Let's Talk Dubs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Want a shout out on the podcast? Give us a 5-star review. We read those reviews on the podcast, give you a shout out. All your homies will think you're famous, and we'll think you're cool. That's worth something. You want to support the podcast, go to letstalkdubs.com, click on the merch, and pick up some merch to support your favorite VW podcast. This podcast is brought to you by VW Trends Magazine, the magazine for the people, by the people. Go to VWTrendsMagazine.com. Subscribe now so you don't miss an issue. Looking at my Gucci, it's about that time. Time to kick it and talk about Bad Razz with Stanley Escolano on this week's Let's Talk Dubs.
A Volkswagen is a nice station wagon to have around the house. The 1974 Volkswagen, covered by VW owner's security blanket.
today's show, I got a special guest. You heard on my story last week on the podcast when I was talking with George. We talked about being at the Red Barn Swap Meet, and as I'm there, I was talking to a couple people walking by, and one of the kids came by. We were having a conversation. He said to me, "Do you remember that car, Bad Razz?" And I said, "Well, yeah, man, I remember Bad Razz. Bad Razz was a legendary car, man. You know, everybody's been talking about what's happening to it and where's it at, and there's all these rumors. Well, today, worry no more, because on the podcast, I got Stanley Escolano with Bad Razz, the owner of Bad Razz, on the phone. Stanley, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Bill.
Hey, so the way we always start the podcast, because we're going to get into Bad Razz, which was probably, in my opinion, one of the more legendary cars back in the day, because it was like you had the whole package. You know what I mean? Like you had the tow rig, you had the display set up. Like it was just a super, super nice car. And we're going to get into the story of Bad Razz. But the way we always start the podcast is, how did you get into Volkswagens, and what's your VW story?
It started back in, I think it was 84. One of my good friends and his brother, they actually started the first cowbug in Salinas, California. And he had a Volkswagen that he was working on, and his brother, and then, in fact, his dad worked at the Volkswagen dealership here in Salinas, California.
Mm-hmm.
And he started taking me to car shows. And back then, I wasn't really into cars. And he went to one car show, and it was down south somewhere, and he brought a picture back, and he was showing me pictures of all these different types of Volkswagens, and I just happened to thumb through his collection of pictures and saw this Pepto pink VW Bug. It was an oval window and had center lines on it. So I was asking him, "Hey, what year is that Bug right there? Because the window's small in the back."
Yeah.
He says, that's an oval window. And I go, "What year is that?" And he goes, "Around somewhere in the 50s. He didn't know exactly what year it was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I basically got hooked. And that's when I kind of made my decision. Okay, my friend had a 66, and it looked pretty decent, but this was different. I wanted to get something that was around here, in just this general area, I guess, Northern California, I guess, somewhere different, something different. So that was my goal, is to find some type of oval window. So that's how I got started, and, going to a few shows here and there. And he, along with the shows, he actually got in kind of like drag racing. He wanted to race his car. So
yeah,
while he was racing his car, I was looking over, the cars that were in the car show, and then they had this section were for sale, and I was looking for some bugs, and a lot of them were like, I guess you would say, out of my price range, because
mm-hmm.
I was still young yet, early 20s, and didn't have that much money, and kept on looking, and then wasn't until about maybe a year going into, I guess, the latter summer of 85, when a couple of my friends were kind of helping me look for bugs. So I looked inside all different type of newspaper clippings. Back then, nothing was online, so you had to really look for newspaper clippings or for sale ads.
Yeah.
And I found a couple, but they weren't in really good condition. And a friend of mine says, "Hey, let's go visit my friend up and his cousin in Hayward, California, called the Buggy House." And it was, I guess, one of those Volkswagen shops back in the days. I don't know if they're still open, but he had a cousin that lived around there, so he went to go visit him. And then later on, Stan, we can go check out the Buggy House and maybe see if there's anybody around that would have one, or know if anybody would have one. Because the one we looked at prior to that, like I said, it wasn't really in good condition. So I was like, okay, I don't want to get that one. So after visiting his cousin's house, we went to the buggy house, and we met this one guy that was actually an employee there, and he's also mentioned in my article when I was featured in Hot VWs. I mentioned his name is Mark Preisendorf.
Yeah.
And he says, "Yeah, I happen to have a 55, and it's at my house. I can give you the address, and you can take a look at it." So we got the address. We drove down there, looked at it, and it looked pretty decent. And I was checking out, hardly any rust anywhere on there, especially the floor pan. You know, you look for the battery area for any rust. You look how well kept the aprons, the front and rear aprons of the car, and then as well as the body. And it looked pretty decent. It wasn't running. It had the original 36 horsepower. It had all the interior and the seats, and it looked pretty decent. So we headed back over to his shop, the buggy house, and then we started asking him questions about it. And I came to the raw answer: how much you want for it? So he goes 800, and I go 800. Okay, so I had cash on me, but I didn't have that much. So I asked him, okay, I don't want the interior, the seats, or the panels or anything. How much you sell it for? So he dropped $100 on that. So I said, okay, that sounds reasonable. Okay, so then I had to think about it and made my decision right then and there. And I go, okay, well then, what do we do? So he goes, well, I'll get the paperwork, the register and everything, and then I'll come back. I think I came back in the next day or two.
Yeah.
With a car and a tow hitch, and then get the paperwork all situated, and I bought the money, and that's how I came with that 55 VW.
And so, at this time in the show scene, I mean, do you think are you setting out to build like some crazy showstopper, or are you just thinking like, I want to build a cool street car?
That's a great question, Bill. Okay, so my first intention was just, build it daily driver.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted everything clean. Okay, because, I wanted, all the paint job, taken off, go down to bare metal. The floor pan, I wanted it clean. So it was in the backyard, jacked up on jacks. I started taking, part by part off, piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went from taking the body off from the pan, and then that was jacked up in the air, slid the floor pan out, and my father bought me a sandblaster. So I did that all myself in the backyard. I had to cover myself. I had shield, just wear clothing that covered my whole body as much as possible, and then have a air compressor, and then small little hand sandblaster, doing section at a time, starting 8 o'clock in the morning until it got dark. Until you can stop making much noise in the evening. And I did that from top to bottom. But that was basically, I just wanted it clean.
Right.
And then started putting things together. And then as I got going forward, getting the car put back together, replacing the brake lines and everything, the body pan and all that. A friend of mine from San Diego, he was into VWs also, and he was into the scene and what people, the judges were looking for. So when he stopped by, because his family lives here, and born and raised here in Salinas, and he lives in San Diego, so he came by visiting his family, and then I told him, hey, can you stop by my house and take a look at my car? And so when he looked at it, he says, all that stuff that you did underneath, you're not going to get recognized for daily driver. And I was like, are you serious? He goes, yeah, they don't look under that. You just pull in your car with your wheels on, and that's it. They look at your paint, your interior, your engine, and then basically that. I go, are you serious? So I was a little disappointed because I wanted it to kind of get recognized for how clean it was underneath.
Sure.
And so that's why I diverted, and I said, oh, screw it. I'm going to go full show.
Now, what made you
and
pick?
That's where I made my...
what made you pick the raspberry paint?
Oh, the raspberry?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another good story. Okay, the same two friends that helped me find that VW, we went to Eddie Plaza's house. And then we started selling. Go, Stan, let's go to Eddie's house, and he has a bunch of magazines that we can look at. So we're looking through hot VWs, looking VW trends, and I happened to come up to I don't know the year and the year of the car or the month. I mean of the magazine, but it was a VW trends, I believe, and this Hawaiian dude had a convertible Ghia, and you know how you have your on the front windshield on the top part where the people like used to stick a hole like a phrase or something.
Yeah, like
and it said Razzmatazz.
Oh,
and,
yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
You remember that?
I do.
And it's like a pink color, and I thought of that color. Okay, let me think of that one. Okay, and then I come to another color. It was like a teal color, and then lime green. And you know those colors were popular back then.
Oh yeah.
And just hitting the scene. It was really popular in SoCal, but Northern Cal, some of those colors weren't hit yet. And I was okay. So I'm deciding, and I'm thumbing through, and then I go back to the teal color. I go back to the lime green. Then I really liked the way that Ghia looked with the pink color and Razzmatazz. But, you know, at that point right there, that's when I made a decision. I want to do it that color.
Yeah.
And, but on the article, it didn't say what type of color it was, getting down to the color chip. And so I can go and get the paint, exact color of the paint, so I can, get a gallon or whatever they need to, or tell the person that was doing the bodywork and paint.
Yeah.
So went to quite a few LA shows. I went to a couple of northern shows, and asking the people that were in that realm of the color, hey, I like the color of your car. And there's a few that were lighter than the one I wanted. But out of curiosity, I'll go, you guys have a paint code chip number, or what color? Oh, it's a custom mix. Or, oh, no, I don't want to tell you the color chip number.
Right.
So I kind of got an idea of like, okay, these guys don't want me to copy their color or find out the details on that, so I can paint my car. So that dropped. That didn't fall through because nobody would divulge the answer. So I finally got set up, and I go, okay, you know what? I'm going to talk to some people that I know at some paint shops. And I went to a couple, and then when I finally went to the second one, which is here in Salinas, it's called Altavilla, and went there, and I was talking to this guy. I go, can you help me look for a particular color? And he goes, do you know the car company, manufacturer? I go, no. I go, can you narrow it down? I go, no, I can't. I mean, that's why I'm here to help you.
Sure,
can you help me out? So he was going through all the different car companies trying to find a color, and he was flipping through until he came up to Porsche. And he was thumbing through here, and he was looking at it, and he goes, is this it? I go, hey, that's it. And it's Porsche Raspberry, and it's actually the 72 year of Porsche, and it had the exact chip number. And I was like, oh, that's it. So I was like, so wipe my forehead, finally found what I wanted.
Right.
So that's how it came to be. That's how I came with the color and my decision.
So during that time because obviously you had planned to do, so your goal the whole time was like cow look build, like, but kind of 80s. What's the newest style back in the 80s with full polished Fuchs? And I mean, one of the things that was really popular back then was tinted windows. You got full, looks like you got full like limo tint all the way around. And
yeah. Actually, the quarter windows and passenger windows, those are actually tinted glass.
Yeah.
The oval window, of course, it's it's a regular glass, and I had that tinted. I kind of had a concept of what look I wanted, and I saw some of the cars that were going with louvers. I saw this one car that had a French antenna, but it was on the rear of the fender, and I didn't like that location. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got some ideas from all these past cars that I never had the pleasure of showing against, and I was a generation behind them. And that's when I came up with some idea, but I wanted to go with a cow look because that was the newest thing around at the VWs at the time. Instead of going, stock where you have the chrome molding windows and the chrome and all that on the body. So that's how I made the decision. But some significant things were, shaved door handles, not shaved door handles, a lot of shaved stuff. Mm-hmm. And I have the French antenna. It's on the left driver's side. And then I have louvers just on the front. I didn't do louvers on the back fender. But that was my concept, cow look with some little different things. And I think till this day, even looking at YouTube videos, I have never seen anybody do a French antenna.
Yeah, the French antennas weren't, they were pretty popular. A lot of the Gias and stuff ran them because they had a little more fender clearance and whatnot. But
yeah,
there was...
And then with that French antenna, my dad ordered me an antenna that it's motorized. So he ran the wiring switch so I can raise and lower the antenna.
Now, in the article, your dad plays a pretty big part in a lot of the electrical and the wiring and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, he's an electrician by his career, and he told me, he asked me, yeah, I can help you out with that. And as far as going into the automotive part, he didn't know much, but he knew what relays and all that circuitry because he was an electrician. He knows how all that stuff works.
Right.
So just by researching the magazines and the VW books that you get, I just handed it down to him, and he did all that wiring for me. And I thank him so much for doing that. And now that I know, and I do have like an electronic background, I do all the electrical work now myself till this day. Now I don't have to rely on my father to do all that.
Sure. So what's pretty amazing is you still have the car today, and I want to get into the kind of eventually get into how it ended up, what the status is of it now, what's your plan. But when you build this car, what's the year that you do? What's the first show that you show this car at?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. Well, when I got it done, it was it was in '89, so it was almost a 4-year project. And I still had, little things here and there that I wanted to touch and get done and get ready for 90. I don't know if you remember Baylands Raceway in Fremont, California.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I took it to the very last show before that the city was going to tear down that track for reasons I didn't know at the time. And the guy that built the engine at the time goes, hey, why don't you show it at Baylands? Because I'm going to be racing there, and it's going to be the last show, and they're never going to have that show anymore. Mm-hmm. I go, well, I'm not done with the car. I mean, it runs, but I got a little more things I want to do to get ready. He goes, well, this will be a good point of where you can find out where you stand.
Sure. I
go, well, that's a good question. I can see where I stand. So back then I didn't have a trailer. I had to have a friend of mine borrow his trailer and his car, and he helped tow it for me to that show. And that's when I first met Chris Addington, because he had the Rodbuster, but it was blue at the time with the graphics.
Yeah, at the time, then it was called Crystal Blue Persuasion was the name of the car.
Yeah, and he was there. Okay, so I was like, wow, gee, I remember I seen his car, man, in the magazine. So
yeah, he's kind of a big
I got
deal.
a chance, the first chance to meet him. Yeah, so I was sitting in my car, got it all displayed and everything, and I just went up to him and asked him, it's a pleasure meeting you, and I seen your car, your Gia in magazines, and now I see it in person. So I just asked him, can you come by and take a look at my car and see what you think? So we're walking to the car, and then he was thoroughly looking at my car, giving me ideas that he saw in mine that, oh, hey, that's pretty original. And he would give me hints on what judges look for and ideas. And so from there on, I took upon myself the ideas that he gave me and implemented some of them into the theme that I was trying to portray, this Bad Razz. And that was my first car show, the very last Bands Raceway VW show.
And how'd you do at that car show?
I ended up taking first place in pre-67.
Oh, nice.
And I took second place best of show behind Chris Annington.
Well, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good company to be in, right?
Yeah, that's why it blew my mind. I was like, wow. And I know I have the article somewhere stored in one of my boxes with the magazine on that. But yeah, I didn't have no idea I was going to do that. I just went out there. I thought, I was scared. I go, I'm not going to do well. I'm not going to even place. But I saw a lot of talent out there that I had to compete against. And I'm like, how am I going to win? I'm not done yet. But it was a great pleasure going to that show and a great experience.
Yeah. And, so what's interesting to me is, I'm in the VW scene at the time, and I'm getting the magazines and all this stuff. And when you and I started talking on the phone, I vividly remember this car because of the displays that you had at the VW shows, like the VW Classic and the Jamboree. Did you show at both the Jamboree and the VW Classic?
Yes, I did. I had the pleasure. And I've seen those events in the magazine,
mm-hmm.
and my goal, I want to go to these shows. They look fun. They look big. And especially, the prize that they gave, I'm like, yeah, I want to go. So I attended both of those. It was a great experience.
And, one of the things that I remember about the car, seeing the car at the Jamboree and stuff, was that I think I have a picture of you and the model next to the car. And I think you were selling posters or something at the time. And you're one of the first guys that I remember. And I know this is one of the first cars I remember seeing, like, oh man, that car is dope. Fully polished alloys. It's raspberry. Like, that car is dope. And then you were selling the posters of it. And I can't remember, you selling them, giving them away. I can't remember at the time. And I just thought, like, from my perception, being in the car show, just walking through as a spectator at the time, my perception is that, man, that car must have already been featured, and that car is super famous because he's got a professional poster and all that stuff. The poster and all that stuff you did before you were featured in the magazine, or after?
It was after. I think at the time, if I was doing anything, it might have been my T-shirts, tank tops, and sweatshirts that I was selling. I didn't do the poster, or was it? Yeah, I think it was after. Was it the one where it was indoor with Tanya Poole on it?
Yeah.
A blonde?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I had that during that process. And
now, what made you decide, like, I'm going to do a poster of my car?
One of these guys, photographers, came up to me,
mm-hmm.
and he goes, "I'd like to shoot your car." And when he said, when he shot my car, I go, "Can I use a model of my choice, or do you guys do that, or you guys pick it?" He goes, "No, if you want to do a model, you can, choose, or just get in contact with us, and then, when we set the date and time, just make sure she's there."
Right.
And so, at the time, I guess, Tanya Poole knew him. The photographer was Ron Kimball.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he's still around, but his studio was in Mountain View, California.
Yeah, Ron Kimball's still around.
Yeah, and he's the one that did the photo shoot. And when Tanya gave me the address and his number, so I called him up, and I made an appointment, and I drove down there, and to find out, okay, what do I need to do, and what we can do to schedule an appointment. And so at the time when we were trying to develop a time, and he goes, "Well, how do you want to shoot it?" I go, "Well, want the model in it. He goes, do you want a background? How you want a theme? I go, oh yeah, that'd be nice. And this was new to me, so I was kind of like giggling. I'm like, this is new to me. So he brought out a book showing all these backdrops. So what kind of theme do you want? You know, you want sun, you want sky, you want dark, whatever. And I was thumbing through it, and I just so happened to come up and saw a night theme with lightning in the background. And I go, hey, that's pretty nice. So I made that decision. You know, he told me how much it was going to cost. We set up a time and date, and that's how I got started. Tanya Poole helped me out with that poster and that photographer.
Now, when you go to do that, I mean, that's an interesting concept to do, to get your car photograph, you know, have it photographed, and then when you go to the shows, make pictures. But I think you probably didn't have any shortage of people that were lining up to buy those, you know, posters, especially to get, you know, that's just a cool thing, especially back, I think late 80s, early 90s, posters were still like, buy a poster, put it on your wall in your garage, you know, anything, I think, to support the scene. So every show that you showed it at after you had the posters done, you were selling posters and shirts and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I got into, I find, you know, as I was doing it, Tanya says, you know, you should sell these. And I go, what do you mean sell them, you know, at the car shows? And this was new to me again. And he goes, yeah, you can actually set up a booth, and I can be there. I can autograph. We can take Polaroids. You can sell your T-shirts, and we can make some money. And I go, okay, that sounds cool. I can make some money at the car show. So this was towards, like, I think, part of when I established my car,
mm-hmm.
and people knew about it, and I was winning shows. So I thought, you know, since my car's exposed, I think people would buy posters, and especially if the model's there, you can take a picture with her and she can autograph it.
Right.
Yeah, no problem. And then at the same time, selling my T-shirt and tank tops and sweatshirts. So I had a booth set up with the canopy, about the table. I had to prepare everything for this, and then nice chairs so we could sit on. And then I had my Bug parked right next to it. So if anybody that wanted to take a picture with the model, or the model with my car, or the car, everything would be there. So that's how I got started. And, you know, Tanya kind of suggested this idea. And so I would give her a schedule of car shows, and we just so happened to be at the BMW Classic, and that one was in Irvine, I believe.
Yeah.
And we had a booth set up, and it was crazy. My booth was just filled with people coming up, meeting my car, meeting the model, seeing what I had, you know, to sell, my T-shirts and so forth. And I just like, okay, well, this way I can make a little bit of money using my car.
Sure.
But yeah, so that's how I got started with that. And going back to when Ron Kimball shot my car, he wanted one specific photo. So he goes, Stan, can you take your license plate off? I go, okay, I'll take it off. And so when he took some pictures, and then back then I just started getting into a VW club, and one of the club members, he goes, hey Stan, you know your Bug is in a published hardback Volkswagen book. I go, no, I thought he was kidding. And he goes, come here. And I went to his car, and he brought out the book, and he showed me. And it's published in a Volkswagen Cars People Love. That's the name of the Volkswagen book. And it was by Max Wagner, I believe. And it's actually in there, and there's a picture in chapter 1. It says the Beetle. And my car, everything's there except for the license plate. The whole background with the lightning, the clouds and stuff like that, and the car. And I'm like, what the hell? My car's in a published book. And I go, hey, where did you buy that book? He goes, it's where we live. It's down Lighthouse Avenue in Monterey, California.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bookstore there. I go, hey, I want to go over there. Hey, no, you can have this one. I go, are you sure? He goes, yeah, Stan, I'll give this to you, because you're a good friend, and I won't need it.
It's got
and
your
I
card,
go, hey,
right?
thanks. Yeah, so I kept that, and it's still in great condition. And I use that when I have like family members or relatives that come down and show them, stuff that my car has achieved. And that one, I had no idea. It just, I just blew my mind. And he never told me about it. Like, hey, Stan, your car is going to be in a book or anything. I go, I didn't know that.
Right. Nice.
I just, yeah.
Yeah. Nice surprise to add to the list of accomplishments for the car. So
yeah.
Now you get on the show circuit, and your goal now is like you're just trying to go take first at every show in full custom and just try to see if you can hold your own against everybody that's out there. So you start making the rounds, the classic, the classic, the Jamboree. Did you hit the Bugaramas? All those shows in all the area at the time.
Yeah, I hit both of them. Because you know how they always had 2 a year, the Labor Day and Memorial Weekend.
Sure.
So I hit both of those. And I won best to show on both of those, and got a couple of best of, best interior,
mm-hmm.
and then best engine. And then the other big one was the Bug Bash in Pleasanton. That's the one show that, other than comparable to the VW Jamboree or Classic down south, that was there in Bugarama. So, like you, just repeating what you said, my goal was just to see if I can win every Volkswagen show that was around.
And now, who was your main competition show-wise back then?
Actually, it was Patrick Frail and the Green M&M.
Yeah.
And he lived in, I think, Mountain View, California. It's just about an hour and 45 minutes up north from me. And that was my toughest competition.
Now, did you know him on a personal level?
I got to after I started seeing him at the shows here and there. And, and then we got to a relationship to where we were pretty cool with each other. And we know we were the big dogs back then, because the generation before, they were kind of faded out. And then that's when him and I were coming in. And that was basically my most rival. And there was probably a few other ones, but his was the other one because he started winning big shows when I wasn't there.
Now
we had a couple of shows.
He was showing full custom as well. I mean, obviously his was chopped.
Yeah, he had a green theme, of course. It says it was the green M&M, so a lot of his carpet and his display was green, and so that's what he went with. And then my theme was, I didn't really have a theme, but I just had the carpet and everything matched. The whole display, the rope and everything was just coordinated to the look of my car. I didn't really have a theme.
Mm-hmm. And then what was like putting that car up, the display, all that stuff, wheels off? How much time did it take you to get set up at the show?
Oh, to get it ready for a show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, well, I got most of it done the night before. Anything I had to polish. I didn't have to really wax the car. I saved that for the car show the day of. But anything that was underneath, anything that had to be polished, I polished, wiped down the chrome. But, you get there about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would say about a little over an hour to get everything prepped up. And then the display took another 15 minutes after that just to get everything set up. But what was worse was the indoor shows. When I started showing it indoors, that took even longer because the lights, the mirrors, but the lights took up the longest, trying to get everything so you don't see all the wires, the cords and stuff like that.
Right.
But in the general area, about an hour at the outdoor shows.
Yeah, and you had like quite the setup over there. I mean, with your display setup, I mean, the mirrors, all that stuff, it's kind of an ordeal with all the polish work and all, I mean, you got all your suspension and undercarriage is all detailed. So that car, you would roll that thing in. I mean, I think you had a dually that had some Raspberry graphics and stuff on. I mean, you had like when you come rolling in the show, you came rolling in pretty strong.
Yeah, I had a '79 dually, four-door dually, and I kind of wanted to go a theme, but I didn't have graphics on my Bug, so I went a little bit more extreme on my truck. And I bought a trailer, painted the trailer myself. My dad helped me do the ramps because as low as my car was, I had to get the ramps a little bit longer, so he helped weld extensions to the ramp. He made the front cover for me. But as far as the dually, I had that thing drop 12 inches all the way around to the ground, went from stock. My friend put a rag top on it, and it was a pretty decent looker. And the whole theme was pretty decent. And my friend kept on teasing me, "Hey, it's Team Razz." And I was like, that's funny. I started laughing on that. So, yeah, I had a theme going. And, when I rolled in, I had a kind of like a look where the towing vehicle and the trailer looked pretty decent to fit the whole theme.
Yeah, it had a pretty sweet setup. I mean, I remember seeing that setup and thought, but I mean, I'm a younger kid at the time. I think like, man, that dude's got it all. That dude got the dually. He got the whole rig set up there. So, it was pretty cool. And that was kind of the thing back then. Like once you had your show car dialed, then you made your tow rig to look just as nice,
Yes, exactly.
And then, your competition, you show that car for how long?
89 through 90, whole 91. And that was just the VW shows. And I did hit some local hot rod shows, because the year of my car would made it to where I can also attend hot rod shows. Sure. Because it's pre-67. So I started taking to some of the local hot rod shows, and one particular, the one here in Salinas, California, where they have it in downtown Old Town, and it was put on by a local car show. And so, what the hell, I'm going to show it there. And then I even showed my dually there because, it fits in that realm. So I had them parked together, and I didn't go full display with my Bug. I just put a couple of pictures down there, trophies, just to show, what I've done. And the end of the result at the car show, I won first place, best of show, and I beat all those hot rods.
Now in the 90s, go ahead.
That was, I would say, 91. And
taken to a hot rod show, that's a pretty big deal to get a first place at a hot rod show.
I thought, well, I just my thing is I just wanted to exploit my car, sure. Not just in the Volkswagen scene, in the hot rod scene. So I did really well there, and as they announced my car, they wanted all the winners and then the best of show car right in the middle in a circle in Old Town Salinas. Mm-hmm. So I drove my car there, and all the other cars that won their classes were there, and walking around those other cars that won, a lot of the guys came up to me, shook my hand, and, "Hey, congratulations on the win. You deserve the win." And that was like, I was on a high, and I thanked them. I appreciated their comments on my car and what I'd done to it. And when I talked to the vice president of the club and the president, they told me this story. They were walking down Old Town looking at all the cars, and then the vice president goes to the president, "Hey, what do you think of that pink Volkswagen?" He goes, "Did you see it?" He goes, "Yeah, I looked at it. That thing's pretty clean. That guy did it pretty well."
Right.
And after that conversation, they made a decision. What do you think is the best of show winner? And they say that Volkswagen. And I appreciated they told me that story. I was like shocked. And I felt so good right after that. So to answer your question, it was from 89 to 91. Because in 92, I went through a whole transformation, and I did some major work getting ready for the ISCA hot rod car show circuit.
So now when you start switching gears to go ISCA, like hot rod circuit, what are the things you're having to change now?
Okay, good question. Great question. I talked to the judges at some of the hot rod events. Okay, so what do you look for in hot rod? And one of the judges was looking. So far right now, your theme is pretty well. You know, I like the way you balance, especially in your engine, the chrome to paint ratio, the polish. Because a lot of guys usually go all paint, some go all chrome. And you just keep up with that theme. But they look for workmanship. How much have you done to the car? Because you notice underneath, he goes, it's black underneath. I go, and he asked me, what's that? I go, that's just undercoating. He goes, well, they look for more detail underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And so he told me some other things that they look for. So I said, okay, if they're looking for that, come December, I started taking the fenders off, and a friend of mine did all the body work. I had to sandblast all that undercoating off from the body, the body and underneath the fender wells.
Yeah, a lot of people
sandblast all that stuff.
A lot of people didn't realize that car had a bunch of, like, the under fenders and the backside of the fenders were all undercoated. Even when you had it on full display at the VW shows, the pan and the suspension was all detailed, but the body itself was all undercoated.
Yeah, underneath, yeah. The floor pan was all painted.
Right.
You know, it was all prepped up, after being sandblasted. And so I have videos of, I actually documented and videotaped that, but it's on VHS, back then, and that's all they had. So I've been meaning to convert that to digital, but I have it all documented. But that was one of my goals. So I have it documented. My friends doing all the body work, and then I had to put Bondo, started sanding it, and we all did that in my garage. And you should see the garage at the time. We had everything taped, so no overspray, nothing gets all over and dust and stuff. And he did all the body work. So that was my main thing. I did some more things differently here and there to the car, but that was a major thing that I did as a facelift to get ready for ISCA, in which that totally enhanced my car. And then another friend of mine at his shop, we took the whole engine apart, and I had the heads and the barrels, piston barrels, all polished. And then I painted the case.
Oh, wow.
Raspberry. Yeah, so he painted the case for me, and I had all that stuff polished by my polisher here in Salinas, California, and did that. So the whole paint, body work underneath, and the whole transformation of the engine underneath was detailed, because I didn't have all that tin to where, when you drive it, you want everything cool. Right. I didn't have the tin off because that would cover all that work, the chrome push rod tubes and all that stuff and all that detail. So that was my transformation in 92.
And then how long do you show it in that circuit for?
I went the whole year, and if you remember, Oakland Roadshow in Oakland, California was the first show to start the whole season. And I took it to Reno. I went to Monterey here in California has the Monterey Carcapades. I don't know if you remember that event. Mm-hmm. There was a show up north. I'm trying to remember that one. I forgot that one. And then there was a show in Reno. So I towed my car up into Reno. And what was nice about that, after you drive to a car show within a certain amount of miles, they reimburse you with gas mileage.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, this is nice. At least I get reimbursed for gas. And then one show, it was the R.J. Canning show in Fresno, where that show was only invitation only. R.J. Canning show in Fresno. And I got invited to that show. So I showed it there, and I did pretty well in my class. So that was 92. And then 93, I hit up every local car show within 100-mile radius of where I live. And one of the other shows was Cherry's Jubilee in Monterey and Laguna Seca, the racetrack. And I showed it there. And one thing about that show, because on Friday they have the event on Old Town Salinas, Old Town Monterey, Monterey Road in Monterey, California, where they park all the cars down Old Town. And we're all parked there, and it's blocked off for only show cars, and then people walk there through the whole day and evening. And then in the evening, they allow us to cruise the strip. So, wow. So I got a chance to cruise the strip.
Nice.
And then Saturday...
You drove the car eventually, like a little bit here and there you would drive the car.
Yeah, I was slowly starting to drive it. It wasn't a trailer queen at that point after that. 92, when I did the ISCA, that was all trailer queen. And now going into 93, showing it Cherry Jubilee, then I started slowly driving it to these hot rod events. And that Friday was on cruise night, and then all day there. And then Saturday and Sunday is where we had our cars parked in Laguna Seca Raceway inside the track area. And then they would have the fun run to where they would break it down into sections, and you physically got to drive your car on Laguna Seca track. Okay. I said, hey, that's a cool idea, man.
Sure.
So I thought, yeah, I got in line and then started driving around. And it was funny. The first one I went to, we were escorted by police cops on bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you get to do 2 laps. Okay, so we started at the start, and we're driving our cars, and we're going about 25, 30 miles an hour around the track. And I tell you, that corkscrew is scary. I don't see how those guys, especially on bikes, ride that. I mean, it's so dangerous, man. It's scary. And I was coming to the start, back to the start. And then one of the bike cops pulled up next to me, and I go, oh, shit, I did something wrong, and I hope I didn't do anything wrong. And he came up to me, and he started revving it. Okay, and I was like, okay, I didn't think nothing of it, so I was driving forward, and he pulled up again, and he kind of revved it. And I was like, what? He goes, let me see, can you get on it? Let me see what you got in there. So I punched, I let the car that had me pull out way ahead of me, and then I just punched it and got on it. And then I slowed down, and then he followed me. He goes, hey, you got some balls in that car. I go, yeah, a little bit. He goes, yeah, that's nice.
Nice.
But that was nice, attending hot rod shows, every local one that I was doing. And I did really well in my year event. And again, I just started exposing it. And then I started doing lowrider and import shows and did really well at those shows, getting my car exposed. Because the type of car mine is. So I can hit any type of car shows because of the year and type of my car was.
Sure. Classified qualifies as an import, a classic, all that stuff.
Yeah. And so one of the big shows was the LA Super Show
mm-hmm.
and the San Francisco Super Show. And, I guess I was kind of getting known to where I was showing some of the smaller lowrider events, and I went to those big shows. And I guess you get kind of privileges once you get big.
Yeah.
Because when they saw me, they go, hey, Stan, we got a spot for you. Can you pull up? And all these guys are like, what the hell is he driving up? And we're still in line.
Right.
So I did really well at those events, the lowriders.
A little bit of the VIP treatment.
Yeah. And, it's fortunate to where, when I had my family and friends with me, they get to go in too.
Sure. Now Now, how long do you end up showing it, and what's the final show that you take the car to before you kind of retire it? I guess. I mean, I don't know. What was your position with the car when you had figured you'd reached everything you wanted to do, or what? When did you stop taking it out to shows?
It was 96.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I was finishing up. I stopped doing all the Volkswagen shows because I won there.
Right.
And if I go there again, I want to give the other guys a chance, but I don't think they would give me a first place again. So that's when I diverted to the other shows. But I started just hitting a lot of local city hot rod shows. And then my last Volkswagen show, I think it was the one in up north, down in Sonoma, California, when I won Best of Show there, and R.K. Smith was there, and so I won first place in my class and Best of Show, and then he took a picture of the model that won, and he started taking pictures. And then after he did that little photo shoot, we started talking, and because he remembered at one of the other shows, my goal was to get in posters and then magazines and then even calendars.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, well, I got a friend that does calendars. So what I'll do is I'll give him your name and number, and then he'll contact you. And it was his name was Jeff Walters, and he did the VW Bikini Team calendars.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And he gave me a call, and we set up an appointment. And again, I asked him, I go, do you furnish your own models, or can I get my own? And he goes, no, you can furnish your own, and then just give her the time and date so we can schedule an appointment to do the photo shoot. And so at the time, Tylene Buck was winning all the car shows, VW shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I met her, I asked her if she wanted to do a calendar. She goes, yeah, sure. When and where. So she wasn't very too far from Sacramento, California, where Jeff Walters lived. And we drove up there, towed it, and then we met, and then we followed Jeff to the site where he wanted to take the photo shoot. And then we started taking pictures for the calendar. And, I was videotaping the whole thing at the time, and me so excited. I was like, wow, I got in that calendar too. And so after the photo shoot was done, he had to do some more shoot with Tylene because he wanted to do some other, because a lot of those other calendars that he makes is of all the nostalgia Coke machines.
Right.
And stuff like that. So he furthered more of a photo shoot with Tylene. So I ended up leaving. And as I was leaving, Jeff he goes, I'll probably call you within the next week or so to let you know the results and stuff like that. So I go, okay, cool. And as I'm driving home the next day or two, I was thinking, man, I wonder if I can get on the cover. I don't know if I'll get on the cover or not, or what month I'm going to be in. So sometime later that week, I get a phone call. Jeff calls me up. He goes, hey, Stan, how you doing? I go, I'm doing fine. And he goes, hey, guess what? I got some good news. I go, what? You made the cover. And I go, you're serious? You're serious? He goes, yeah, you made the cover. I go, cool, man, cool. And I was like, yeah. So I called up Tylene and let her know that we made the cover, and she was excited. And then as the time back in 91, I was selling the posters with Tanya. I asked Tylene, hey, would you mind meeting me at some of the car shows and we could sell our calendars? Because, yeah, sure, just let me know what car show, what day and time, and I'll meet you. And it was one of the shows up in Sonoma that we hit. And I called up Jeff, and I go, can I place an order for extra calendars? He goes, yeah, how many do you want? And so he gave me the first, I think, 50 at a discount, and then I had to pay full price after that. And then started there. I just started selling them to local friends, but I gave it all to my relatives. I gave one to my mom and dad, and I autographed it, signed it. And I met Tylene later on that year at one of the couple of shows, and we started selling the calendars. And at the time, I had the old posters with Tanya, and then my T-shirt and tank top. So I had a booth set up, and she was going signing. We're doing Polaroids and stuff like that. And that's when I stopped showing it back in '96, and I actually started driving to car shows just to drive to car shows with a friend of mine and his group, just to attend car shows instead of trading it, driving it.
Yeah, and you're
and
driving Bad Razz to it. Nice.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't want to go. I went to these shows to have fun. I didn't want to enter the car show, but they say if you want to park in the general area, you have to enter the car show. I go, okay, whatever. I paid the fee and everything. I just wanted to be in the show. I didn't want to be in the parking lot parked in there, so I was entering the show. But I just went there to have fun.
Right.
And people till that day would say, Yeah, you didn't drive it here, Stan. You trailered. I go, no. Talk to these guys I came with. I met them at 6:00 in the morning, and from there, we just drove all the way to Modesto, which is that one car show. I forgot the name of it, in Modesto, and
like the
that's a
Spring
pretty
Fling
fun
in
show.
Madera.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Madera, Spring Fling in Madera. Yeah, I went to that one. I hit up another show that was nearby there. That was later on in the month that year. And yeah, I just started driving, and then again hitting some more of the local hot rod shows, like the one that we have here. We have the Salinas Air Show. I entered it there, put on by some of the local hot rod guys. But then I started actually driving it physically just for fun. That's when I stopped showing it.
And when you stop showing it, like, you just take it out occasionally for car shows. You just get busy with life, or what goes on where you just like. You kind of lean back on the scene a little bit, and kind of the car gets just put away for a while, or what?
Yeah, that's when I started driving it. Like if I had errands, I always drove it in the summer. It never hit the pavement when it was raining. Kept it stored in the garage. Took it occasionally out. Stopped doing the shows, and I went with my everyday life. And from there, I was doing some other things, but I pretty much got out of the car scene after that, and it sat from 97, 98. It sat until about 2006 when I up and come like, okay, it's been almost about 10 years.
Right.
People haven't seen my car, so I go, you know what, I'm going to break it out, and I didn't really do anything to it at the time, and then I went to the Kelly Park show, and I was parked next to this gentleman, and I loved the way this car was set up. It was a 56 ragtop right-hand drive.
Yeah.
It was like a teal color, and he had big fat slicks in the back, and the front end was narrowed. I mean, it got tires and rims tuck under, and I go, how do you achieve that? He goes, I narrowed my beam. I go, what is narrow beam? See, I was out of the mix.
Well, see, what's funny is I've been trying to track down like when the VW beams got narrowed, because they had been narrowed before that for quite some time, but they were using most for drag race applications. But that was like a huge game changer. And, I was remembering that I was trying to figure out when all that happened, because that really changed the game in respect to what you could run for wheel and tire combo, because that was the reason why everybody ran such tiny wheels in the front, is because of, you had to run the stock beam, which gave you no turning clearance. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know till this day when they started it, but when I came out, 2006-ish, I was like, wow, that's nice. So I asked him, hey, did you do that yourself? He goes, yeah, I did this whole car myself. I go, hey, how, if I may ask, what would you do to charge to have that done? He goes, well, I don't do it for people, but after talking to him, I finally convinced him to do that. And at the end of the conversation, he goes, hey, Stan, I got this idea where I can raise and lower the car.
Yeah.
I go, how? He goes, I have this idea with a hydraulic actuator. I go, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And so could you incorporate that in my car? And he goes, well, okay, I'll do that. And so he gave me an estimate, and I said, let's go for it. So I met him halfway, because he lived in Stockton, California. And from there, he towed my car back the rest of the way instead of me driving it all the way. And from there, I forgot how long he took, but he came into one complication. He says the original actuator that he was supposed to use wasn't strong enough to turn the beam and raise the car up.
Right.
So he had to use a larger one. I go, is that going to affect the car? He goes, well, I have to do a little more cutting and achieve this result. I go, okay, sure. And he would, I would call him every so often to see how the process was going. I drove down there one time just to take a look at it, and he was almost getting done to a point. And so that was my next transformation. I had 4-inch narrow beam with a hydraulic actuator with a switch inside the car where I can raise and lower the car.
Now, who's the guy that set that up for you?
I'm trying to remember his name. I can't recall it right off the bat. It's been years. Bob something. I forgot his last name. But he's the one that did it. He's from Stockton. I don't know if he's still around or not. I would have to scrounge somewhere and hopefully find his number somewhere. But he's the one that did the work. So as I was exploiting my car 2006, 2007, I had that new. But in 2006, I met this other guy, and his name is Luis Solorzano. Mm-hmm. He's another photographer, and he knew about my car. And he goes, yeah, I take photos. And I asked him, hey, do you do posters? He goes, yeah, I can do those. And so we started talking, and he goes, would you like to do another poster? I go, yeah. So I go, can I get my own model? And he goes, yeah, you can bring any model. So at the time, I didn't know any of the girls at the VW circuit or any car shows in general that were winning bikini contests. So I just started calling up models that I knew. Like, for example, Susie Hitchinson. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember her. She's the one that won the bikini contest at VW Jamboree, and I won Best of Show. And she goes, I can refer you to some people. And I called Tanya Cole, and then I started making phone calls, leaving my number to these girls that they were suggested, and they sent me pictures. And I finally came up with this one girl, and it was supposed to be a double shoot to where there was two girls with it.
Right.
But one of the girls backed out. So one was Caucasian and the other one was Asian descent. Mm-hmm. And so one of the girls, I'm trying to remember her name, she didn't show up. So the photographer says, we need to start photo shooting. So Tiffany was there. So that's where you see my second poster that was done in 2006 with the new look. I lowered the car slammed,
right,
and then he took that 3/4 view, and that was the newest thing that I'd done to the car, but everything else was basically the same. And then that's where I came in to the car shows. I just, like I said, I didn't hit any VW shows because I was there already. I just hit all the local shows and just driving it, and then did that poster. And we never fell through on going to the shows and selling posters because it never panned out. But I just sell them on my own.
Now,
from 2006 to 2007, all the way up until 2012.
Yeah,
that's when it was high and dry.
And now
and I stopped driving it.
You still have some of the original posters?
I still have the original posters, and
the
second posters too.
All right, I'm going to get one of each of those from you. But and at the end of this, we'll give your email address so that people, if they want to order some from you, that they can and do that kind of stuff. But
but if you remember when I emailed you those photos, I said send me your address, and I'll ship you both of those.
Yeah, no, for sure.
On me.
Yeah.
So don't forget to do that.
Now, I have a question about the hydraulic front suspension that you have on there. Is that still in and operating on the car?
Yes, it is.
So it's a self-contained hydraulic setup, like a trailer lift almost in the front?
Yeah, it's actually called a hydraulic actuator. And it's electronic. It's not air or nothing. It's electronic.
And so that rotates the front torsion housing to raise and
the
lower
torsion
your car?
arm, yeah. Inside, yeah. The inside where it has the torsion arms and the actual what do you call it, the leaves inside there.
Uh-huh.
It's the mechanism that turns both of them simultaneously, and then you can see the car raise up and down. Yeah.
No,
but I guess that's old school, because everything right now I see is everything's all airbagged, and that's something that it's nice, but I don't want to invest in that. I'm just trying to change the look of the car here and there, which people will see once I break it out, hopefully.
Yes.
The end of this year.
That's the next question. What's the current status of the car right now?
the car's on its wheels. I finally did the stuff to the transmission and the rear end. I'm still waiting for the engine. That's being worked on. I put a brand new steering wheel, which is a billet steering wheel. I took the old Formula France off on that. I did. My seats used to be real low. Well, I got some brackets. I set it up to where now it's stock height.
Now you can see now you can see over the dash.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's funny. Some of the girlfriends that I had, not girlfriend, but girlfriends that I knew would drive with me, and some of them were really short. And as we're driving, they would say, "Stan, I can't look out the window," and I would laugh. So now I got it stock height, and the front end, I'm just checking to see everything's clean. I replaced the dual master cylinder. I put a brand new one in there. Everything else is pretty much clean in there, but I'm just touching up anything that looks like it's been faded. So I'm repainting a lot of stuff. As I put the brand new dual master cylinder, I replaced the brake lines in there. I had the old school, fuel pump in there. I am diverting over to electronic fuel pump. So I installed that and then getting all the electrical done on that. And just, I got some other stuff that I have done, but it's basically once I get the engine, it's ready to slap in.
Yeah, I was hoping to have you come down to the Vegas event, but I look forward to seeing you at any events upcoming in the future.
There's on Facebook this one guy that puts on that show in Pomona.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me, "I'd love to see your car there," and I just replied back, "I'd love to attend that show." And as he told me the date, it's not until next year, January. I guess the last weekend of January.
Right.
That sounds promising. That I should be able to make that. And if my car is done, I definitely want to attend that show.
No, that'd be.
But unfortunately, your show is the end of this month, correct?
Yeah, it's the 24th. So.
Yeah,
but
my
no
car's
big
not
deal.
done.
It's more important that you're at the Grand National Roadster Show. Mine is more a driving fun event. That's really the great part about that Grand National Roadster Show that's coming up. It's really going to be something to commemorate, the hobby of the VW scene in the custom car world, because, that's the Grand National Roadster Show. And usually that Building 9 is reserved for like the car that's, the marquee vehicle that they're doing for that year, which the Volkswagens are finally getting the recognition. And it's from guys like you going to hot rod shows and things like that, and Chris Addington and George Delfino, Steve Connect, a lot of the guys out of Bakersfield, and a lot of the custom VW guys have just been doing it for a long time. So it's about time that they finally get their due. One of my questions on the car. So, one of the things I kind of geek out about is back in the day. So it had an Alpine in it, which was, what you needed to have in your 80s custom was Alpine. You had some Hyphonics amps, some Redline subs. You still got the bumps in there?
Yeah, actually, when I had the interior done, I had them set up the box for two 12-inch woofers.
Mm-hmm.
So that allowed really an uncomfortable back seat.
Yeah.
You couldn't actually lean back and be more comfortable.
Right.
So I took that box out. I had another box made, and I only had 112, and I still used one of the amplifiers, but I took out the Hyphonics, and I have the Clarion amps in there, and in fact, one of them is in the front where the tire sits. My father made me a bracket so I can mount that there, and I have a capacitor. But the system has changed, and I have a old school tape deck. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it plays this tape, but I have a CD changer on there. Nice. And also I have a 7-inch TV that I just put on top of the
on the fuel tank. Yeah, I saw it in your display.
The glove compartment area, and that's a 7-inch. And then I have one hanging from the hood, which is a 15-inch screen, because I installed and I did the whole back interior setup where I have my PlayStation 2 at the time. That was a big deal in video games, and I have it installed in there. So, like my little nephews can play video games inside there. So that was another thing that I've done. And if I may, I have to go back to the part where the color, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister, slapped me for this, but you better mention me. But that she had something to do with the color also.
Oh, picking the color?
She wanted to get a notch back, and she wanted to paint it a raspberry color. And I didn't mean it like I was going to steal it. I didn't think she was going to, she never did it. She never got a notch back and never painted it.
Right.
But that was kind of an idea also flowing into how I chose my color, because when she showed me it I forgot what she showed me that was a color. I don't know if it was her nail polish or her lipstick or something. But she showed me the color. I go, hey, that's a nice color. And then that's when I happened to see it in a magazine. But I just wanted to kind of go back on that.
Yeah.
But as far as the stereo stuff, I updated. It's not in the trunk area anymore. The trunk area is pretty much clean. They have my own console set up in the trunk area.
Uh-huh.
And it's clean carpeted, and you still see the wiring. And I made a cover so you can't see the back of my dash, but you can see where the terminal strips are on the bottom portion of the trunk area, where all the wiring that my dad did. So I kind of changed that. But
now, in your car's been, for you, it's not the car that you built in the 80s, right? I mean, for you, you're still evolving in that car. Like, you're with the front suspension, changing the stereo equipment, like doing a bunch of that stuff. You're constantly doing a little bit of something to that car, even if you're taking breaks now and again. I mean, it's not the same car from the magazine feature in 1990.
Yeah, you can change. There's major changes done since then.
Yeah, and one of the
now,
things.
Yeah. Now that I came up with some money financing. Now I have the time to actually work on it and get it running. And at the same time, I go, you know what? I'm going to change the look of it a little bit, so people like you that remember my car will say, "Hey, wow, that's different." But then for the people that don't know my car at all, they're going to say, "Wow, where'd this car come from?" But so I'm just doing some new things here and there to it.
Now, one of the things that surprised me when we started talking about, and we connected on the phone a week or so ago and started talking about doing the podcast, and I said, man, I can't remember what issue your car was in the magazine, because I remember the car from seeing it at the shows, but I can't remember the cover it was on. And then I figured out it wasn't a cover car, and that it was in Hot V. Your car was in the February 1990 issue of Hot VWs, but it was not. It was not a cover car, which I'm surprised, because that car should have been a cover car. Do you think it not being on the cover kind of, how did you take that? Like, did that bother you that it wasn't on the cover?
Yeah, it bothered me a little bit. I mean, I was hoping it'll be on the cover.
I mean, it's kind of one thing when you see the cover and it's like, oh man, that's a pretty dope car too. You got to pick one or the other, but I mean, they got this Type 1 street rod business, and I'm thinking maybe it's because it's the 90s. They're trying to do something new. I mean, I don't get it, but that was interesting, because that's one of the reasons that I really wasn't in my head connecting which issue your car was in.
Yeah. And then I have a theory on maybe why, but I don't know if it was a political thing at the time.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if I'm, able to divulge it. But would you like to hear my theory?
Sure.
Yeah, my theory is RK was supposed to do the original shoot, RK Smith. And it was towards the beginning of that 90. And you know how I finished 89, and I took my car off in December, and I wanted to get some stuff done by chroming, and a lot of it had to do with my brakes, my rear brakes. So
right.
That, along with a few other things, and it was at the chrome shop. And RK calls me up that month, early part of the year, and says, "Hey, Stan, I'm going to be in your area because I got some photo shoots I have to do. Can we shoot your car?" I go, "Sure." Okay, so then when it came closer to where he was actually going to come down that weekend. He goes, "Hey, Stan, I'm going to be there in a week. You know, you're going to be ready for the photo shoot." I go, "Oh, I hope I can, because right now I have some of my parts being chromed, and hopefully I'll get it back by then." So the day comes, and he calls me up that morning, and it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and he calls me up, you ready to do the photo shoot? I go, "Well, I called up the chrome shop, and it's still not done." He goes, "Well, I got another shoot that I have to do later on the day." And I go, "Okay, Arcade, then let's just postpone it for another time, because my car's not going to be together." And then I had this model, which was, her name was Lori, and she was friends with Shannon Ray at the time, and she was going to be my model with the car. And so that passed, and then later on that summer, I asked Arcade, "Can we do the photo shoot?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Yeah, okay, well, we'll do the photo shoot, okay, but I'm not going to be there. My other editor is going to be there, Michael Summer." And so we did the whole photo shoot. I picked out the place, and there's no model, because Lori at the time, following that, the year before, she got pregnant. So she was having a baby, so that fell through, so there's no model with it. And we did the photo shoot, and so we completed it. And then when the issue came out, you know, Michael told me it was going to come out this month and stuff. So at the time, I had my subscription already, and so when it came, I looked at the cover, and I wasn't on there. And I was like, "Okay, where am I?" So I'm looking at the table of contents and looking what page I'm on.
There's no inside cover picture.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not on there. So I did my history. I was looking through every Hot VWs prior to mine, and I looked every car cover shot that was featured, that was on the cover, was all featured by R.K. Smith. And I looked at Michael Summers, and all of his was never on the cover. So, you know, that was my theory on that, you know, because at the time, R.K. Smith was the lead editor for taking pictures of the magazine. So that's just my theory. But again, just to answer your question, I was just a little disappointed, but I was happy that I got in a magazine. That was one of my goals that I wanted to set after building this car. That was one of my goals, and I achieved it. That's all that mattered to me. I got in the magazine.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a big deal when you get your car in the magazine, and then to be able to, you know, have it featured in there, and then have, you know, so much fun with it for so long, being able to take it from show to show and get it out there. I mean, I'm excited that you still have the car. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Next time I'm up in the Northern California area, I'm going to hit you up and come over to the house and take a look at the car. But realistically, I don't know if I'm headed up there again this year, but I mean, I was just up there a couple weeks ago when I met your brother's your friend's little brother.
My friend's younger brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to coming out there and take a look at that car. But realistically, I will probably be at the Grand National Roadster Show, and I'll get to see you there. And
that's what my goal is to get the car. It should be mostly done by then, and it'll definitely be running and on the road by, I would say, a couple months from now.
Yeah.
But the other things I want to do to it, I'm hopefully it'll be done by that show, because my intentions to go to that show, and then next year I definitely want to attend your show.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. So,
but if you're ever in this area, give me a holler, and you can come and take a look at what I'm doing if you come this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, let's get that car back on the road and get it out there to see it, because I know a lot of people, you know, from our generation are really, really excited to see that car again. So I'm looking forward to seeing it in person. I mean, shoot, it's been 30 years for me since I've seen that car, man. So
yeah, I mean, it's funny because since I'm doing all my upgrades to the car, I talked to a couple people, and they forward me to, because they asked me, do I have Facebook, or are you Instagram, or how you associate with social media? I go, well, I just have a Facebook. I really don't do much to it. He goes, well, you should hit up our 80 and 90s, and then friends that. So that's when I got introduced to Bob.
Yeah.
And so I periodically scrounge through there, look through there, and then people are tagging my car, and I'm seeing some of the old cars. But when they tag my car and they're commenting on my car, so I'll just comment back, hey, I thank you for all your comments. I appreciate it. And in fact, I am going to be breaking it out soon. So just to let you know, thank you for the comments. And going through all that, people are commenting on my car, looking at it, and people tagging it. And I go, where are you guys getting these pictures from? And some of my, remember, there's a few that they got me puzzled where they take this picture. And now that I'm associated, I got a Instagram, and it's Bad Razz 55 is my Instagram.
Oh, nice.
And people are starting to now, because my friend suggested it, so I just did it the other day. I go, what the hell? I'm going to go ahead and do it now. I didn't intend on doing it, but people are already liking my photos and stuff that I'm doing in the car.
Yeah, no, that's dope stuff, man. I'll definitely connect you with. I'll definitely put your link out there. And if people want to call, like, reach out to you and get some posters, do you have any of those old school shirts and tank tops and stuff left?
The posters I have, the T-shirts and tank tops and sweatshirts, it'll be coming soon, because the guy that did the original work to that is no longer in business. So I have a friend that is referring me to one of his friends, and I gotta make an appointment to see if he can do the quality work that needs to be done to get my T-shirts and tank tops and sweatshirts out, and those will be coming soon. So, but anybody interested in the poster, they can just get in touch with me any way they can.
You have an email address that be best for them to reach out to you via email address?
Yeah, other than my Instagram or Facebook, my email is badraz1@att.net.
Okay.
That's my email.
For sure, man. I'm sure plenty of people reach out to you for those posters, to get some of those posters from you, because it's definitely something that is worthy of hanging on the wall in the garage, So
yeah, I mean, I figure, people that bought my posters back then, and if they're still around and they're still VW enthusiasts, like, wow, I haven't seen that car in a while. I'll get my posters probably all torn up, or I got rid of it. They probably want to buy it, and especially all the new people. But yeah, it's still there. And again, all my apparel will be out soon, and I will be informing people when they do come out.
Yeah, that's rad, man. Well, I look forward to it, man. Stan, I appreciate you spending some time with us and coming on the podcast and letting us know what happened with Bad Razz. And I'm glad that you still have it, and I'm stoked to see it in the near future. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to meeting you, all the guys, and then get back into the VW community.
No, for sure, man. I'm excited too. So, thanks for coming on, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the Grand National Roadster Show.
Yeah, great. That'll be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, buddy. Wonder no more. Now you get to hear what happened, the story of Bad Razz. I hope you guys appreciate it as much as I did. I look forward to seeing that car back out on the road and get to see it up close and personal after 30-some years that I haven't seen that car. A lot of 80 stuff hitting the streets again. I'm excited to be part of the team that's getting those cars on the road with my rag chop, and also Tori bringing out the Future Shock. Lots of cool stuff that's going to be there to see at the Grand National Roadster Show. But you know where else there'll be cool stuff to see? At the One Crazy Weekend here in Las Vegas. So don't forget, jump online, letstalkdubs.com, and register for the car show and the poker run. Do both. Why not? You only live once, right? We'll see you guys September 24th and 25th. You want to support the podcast, pick up some merch at letstalkdubs.com and select the store. Until next week, guys, later.
A Volkswagen is a nice station wagon to have around the house.